Stay in the know. Get the full event lineup at piratesfestcayman.com.
Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Coca-Cola, available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga distributors. Accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola. Brand Source Home Gallery, inspiring luxury. West Bay Pharmacy, taking care of your health. And JN Money.
From abroad to yard.
Fast, affordable, convenient. Doctor's Hospital. Peace of mind is important when life happens. Doctor's Hospital, always there for you. Call 949-6066.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. For the record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
For the record. For the record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orrett Connor.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. O land of soft, fresh breezes and verdant trees so fair. Today is the 28th day of November 2022. Right here in the beautiful Cayman Islands, we hope and we trust that everyone had a restful, peaceful, enjoyable weekend. Those of you who are on the roads of the Cayman Islands, again, we urge you to please be extremely cautious. Whether you're a pedestrian, a cyclist, or operating any type of motorized vehicle on the roads, please ensure that you observe the rules of the road. Remember to use your indicators when navigating a roundabout or whenever you're changing directions. That is your way of communicating with other drivers on the road. If you do so, then our roads will remain safer. And who knows, the life you save may just be your own. For those of you who are celebrating a birthday today, we want to wish you a happy birthday, or if you celebrated one over the past few days, a belated happy birthday to you as well. And to remind you that the For the Record birthday shout-outs are proudly brought to you by life insurance agent Michael Webster from Cayman Insurance Center. And his motto is, don't take chances with your family's future. For those of you who have lost loved ones, again, we want to express our sincere condolences to you. We hope and we trust that your faith will help to carry you through these extremely challenging times, and that the memories of your loved ones will be a blessing to you as well. And we heard the sad news of the passing of another Cayman style icon, as well as a musical icon in the Cayman Islands, Mr. Edward Solomon, and our condolences go out to Mr. Solomon and to his family as well. Those of you who are ill and are either at home or at a medical facility here in the Cayman Islands or overseas, we wish you a speedy recovery as well. So, folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman, and by extension For the Record, into your homes, into your vehicles, as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, wherever that may be. As you know, For the Record is a show produced by the staff and management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I am your host, Orrett Connor, and you're welcome to join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. During that period, our phone lines are open, and again this morning, the beautiful radio voice of Miss Susan Watson is in the studio waiting to take your calls. You can call us on our toll-free number provided courtesy of Flo. That toll-free number is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. Email us at fortherecord, one word, fortherecord at candw.ky. WhatsApp us 3261, where you can send us a text message or leave us a voice note, the contents of which will be played during the course of the show. You can follow us on YouTube. You do that simply by subscribing to Radio Cayman live stream. And, of course, we are on Facebook as well. So, please feel free to join us. Again, to remind you that our birthday shout-outs are proudly brought to you, this segment, proudly brought to you by life insurance agent Michael Webster from Cayman Insurance Center. His motto is, don't take chances with your family's future. So let's look at some of the birthday greetings going out today. And Mrs. Elmitha Connolly, she is celebrating her birthday, and birthday greetings are coming from your daughter, our own Radio Cayman's Miss Paulette Connolly. Also from the rest of her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren as well. And she is 81 years of age today. So, Miss Elmitha Connolly, happy birthday, happy 81st birthday to you, coming from all of your family, your daughter, Miss Paulette Connolly, the rest of your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren as well. Let's look at other birthday greetings. Mr. Andre Archer, celebrating a birthday today. That's, we believe this, coming from Facebook. Anne-Marie Felicia Stevens, also celebrating a birthday today. Emily de la Garda, Emily de la Garda, Angelita Edwards, and Jean Dries. They're all celebrating birthdays today as well. So we want to wish all of you a happy birthday as well. So we're going to take an early commercial break. We do have guests in the studio. You heard Minister Andre Ebanks here with us on, that was Friday? On Friday. And was it Friday? Yeah. And he promised to return today as well. So we're going to take an early commercial break. When we return, we will have he and his team on the show with us. So, folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
The Cayman Islands boasts of a long, colorful, and rich history. In tribute to our roots, Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands, is pleased to bring you the historical vignette series, brought to you by Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects. The Cayman Islands, he hath founded it upon the seas.
Captain Rael Brazeley Bodden, Sr., MBE, JP, was born in 1885 and died at age 91 in 1976. He was best known as a shipwright who used his marine architectural skills to construct prominent historical landmarks on Grand Cayman. In so doing, Mr. Bodden carried on the tradition of his father and grandfather. In 1971, Captain Rael was recognized of his development contributions by being asked to lay the cornerstone for the Legislative Assembly building. Captain Rael built many ships, including the well-known Simboko, the Lady Slater, launched in 1934 as sister ship of the Simboko, old-time schooners, and 2 minesweepers for the Royal British Navy. The Simboko was constructed in 1927 and was the first locally built motorized ship in Cayman. For 20 years, she was Cayman's connection to the world, carrying freight, passengers, and mail between Grand Cayman and the sister islands, Jamaica and the United States. Captain Rael held the office of Admeasure of Shipping for over 45 years. He was appointed a Justice of the Peace in 1928 and served in the Assembly of Justices and Vestry. Captain Rail was married to Miss Hetty, nee Bodden, for 63 years. Together, they raised 5 children and were the proud grandparents of 22 grandchildren, many great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren. He received his MBE in 1941, Her Majesty the Queen's Badge in 1954. In 2008, the Central Planning Authority celebrated the contributions of Captain Rail Bodden for his outstanding contributions to planning.
Radio Cayman's historical vignettes was brought to you by Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects.
The Atlantic hurricane season is now through November 30. International weather authorities predict up to 21 named storms and 6 major hurricanes. Prepare now. Select your place of safety before the storm. Get supplies now when it's easy to shop, avoiding long lines and crowds. Secure your valuables, your documents, your medicines, your first aid kit. Keep a photographic record of your valuables. Charge your phone, get more credit. Plan where to safely park your car. Preparation now makes sense. A message from Rotary Central, planning ahead for disasters since 1997. Rotary, all the good you imagine.
We think it's time you crossed over to a new vehicle. And with the Toyota Corolla Cross now at Vant Motors, you have plenty of reasons to make the switch. The crossover body and hybrid engine is a sleek design in a sturdy structure with a spacious interior that opens to extensive cargo space. Stuck in traffic? The high-performance self-charging hybrid system automatically switches between gas and electric vehicle mode, helping you lower both fuel costs and carbon emissions. The Corolla Cross has full LED lighting inside and out, an integrated display audio system with energy monitor, and a dual-zone climate control system to ensure comfort for all. Test drive the new Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid today at Vant Motors, Walkers Road.
So much happening, so fast, too much. It is hard for me to follow my healthcare instructions. The private counseling with West Bay Pharmacy literally saved my life.
At West Bay Pharmacy, we know how complex medications can be. Our pharmacists are delighted to offer you personalized one-on-one healthcare counseling, free medication review, therapeutic callbacks, and we will liaise with your physician to ensure you receive the best in quality medical care.
Quality of life has a whole new meaning with the right pharmacy to support you. Thank you, West Bay Pharmacy.
West Bay Pharmacy in Centennial Towers. Convenient quality care is just around the corner. Now you can WhatsApp your West Bay Pharmacy prescriptions to 516-0777.
What's that? No sugar, same amazing taste? Coca-Cola Zero Sugar is here to stay. Classic taste, pure satisfaction. Be sure to stop into any Tortuga location and get your own case of Coke Zero. Or grab an ice-cold one straight from the cooler. Brought to you by Tortuga Distributors Limited. Coca-Cola, taste the feeling, K-Man.
60 and bossy with J and money. When I trip it easy, trust me. Yeah. Come on, just send some money. I instant entry. Look how you're lucky. Bossy, J and money, bossy. J and money, send you go a yard. Teen, bossy. Jamaica well bossy. 60 and bossy. We well proud.
Celebrate Jamaica 60 with J and money for a chance to win a dream vacation for 2 to Jamaica, including airfare, resort stay, and more. Send money for a chance to win. Your loved ones will also be entered for a chance to win a brand new car. Competition runs from now until December 24th. J and money 60 and bossy enough.
Call 345-945-2014 for details. Available at J and Money locations across the Cayman Islands.
Bossy, Jamaica well bossy. 60 and bossy.
No J and bank account required.
Your dream home starts with a vision, and often inspiration is at the heart of that vision. Brand Source Home Gallery's in-house designers are here to help bring your vision to life. Whether you're remodeling or building a new home, Brand Source Home Gallery is your one-stop solution. Explore their kitchen cabinets, sinks, faucets, bath fixtures, tubs, vanities, and more. Let Brand Source's designers help and inspire you with your next project. Call 623-5000 and schedule an appointment with a design expert at Brand Source Home Gallery, Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park, serving Cayman for 50 years.
With costs and insecurities rising, staying grounded and focused is what your family needs. Life insurance covers your family and mortgage protection. Peace of mind is mental health awareness.
Life insurance, the sure way to protect your family. I'm Michael Webster. Don't take chances with your family's future or your valuable assets. Cayman Insurance Center, protecting you and your family so you can take back your future. I'm Michael Webster. Let's discuss your peace of mind today. Call me at 925-5433.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. It is my pleasure to have in the studio with me this morning, Minister, again this morning I would say, Minister Andre Ebanks, Mr. Ian Tibbetts, and Mr. Charles Brown. Mr. Charles Brown is the Acting Deputy Chief Officer in the Ministry, and Mr. Ian Tibbetts is the Director of the e-Government Unit. Gentlemen, good morning. Welcome back to For the Record.
Thank you, OC. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, OC. Good morning to the listening public, and good morning to Caymanians overseas.
Yes, and Minister, true to your word, you're right back here with us this morning to add more clarity to what we discussed earlier. And for those persons who didn't have the opportunity to listen in on Friday morning, they will hear about what was said then and even more.
Yes, indeed. And thank you for accommodating us. We had recognized that Friday, due to the special Parliament meeting bookings that you had after us, didn't provide sufficient time.
Right.
And so we thought it was useful to continue the conversation. So we appreciate you taking the time to book us in for more time.
No problem at all, sir.
Perhaps there may be members of the listening public that didn't hear an overview on Friday, or maybe weren't listening, weren't able to listen. And so what I would propose that we do is frame the overall objective, the intents and purpose of the National Digital ID card and system, and then discuss some feedback that we've received, both of the advantages and persons who are excited about the tool, and then those who have concerns. And what we will do is, particularly there seems to be the concerns that we received either through viewpoints, written letters, meetings that we've had, is not necessarily on the card bill, but on the register bill. And so we will take the listening public through a summary of each section, and then I will interject where there's been a highlighted concern, and perhaps where a clarification can be made or a proposed change.
Excellent. Excellent.
So just to take a step back and frame the overall objective. As the Ministry of Innovation, there had been significant, I think, feedback and frustration and hassle of individuals having to transact business with government for years. And it had been, I think, conceived in prior administrations of a way in which you can have an ID that proved who you were for the purposes of being able to have a more joined up government system and ease your dealings or business with government. So to give a real example, in a number of Caymanian cases, it is difficult to prove that you are a Caymanian with one document. Nothing in my bedroom drawer or in my pocket in one document proves I'm Caymanian. So I carry around 6 or 7 documents every time I renew a passport to prove I'm Caymanian. And I hold on for dear life of a status letter that I have as if it's the first Bible I had in Sunday school to make sure I never lose that, to ensure that I can prove. And my father's birth certificate, my grandfather's birth certificate. So we needed a way to consolidate that in one document that could be verified to say you're Caymanian. In addition, to have the tool have digital features that can remove some of the painstaking efforts it can be to transact with government, whether that be DVDL, whether that be customs, whether that be education scholarships, whether that be NEU. Because you're in line, you're trying to receive either services or benefits, and you feel like you've done this step before with a different department. You filled out the same information, your identification, you're standing in line, you have to drive there, you have to stand in line, you have to wait for the processing time and wait for it to come back. And that's primarily because each department, you're in line in person because the department wants to prove that you are you. So the reason for the additional bill of the added features of the register is so that you could have an interlinking of the different government agency databases that for that specific purpose and that purpose alone at your choosing, you can interact and have that database see who you are. And then you move from a system in which you have to now stand in line that you might be able to do a number of these transactions sitting on your sofa. So different than in a way in which, in a private sector context, we used to drive, rent DVDs from Blockbuster, drive there. If they had the one you wanted, you get it. If they didn't, you have to wait until they have it, then go all the way back home if you do get it, watch it, bring it back, and then if you were late, they fined you, and you had to pay a penalty. Whereas Netflix then provided you a tool in which you can do all of what you were doing at Blockbuster from your bed. So in a similar fashion, we're trying to provide that level of efficiency and innovation to the resident to be able to transact business with government. So that was the overall sort of broad scheme and purpose and intent. It's an innovation tool. We are the innovation ministry and not a surveillance tool. However, we do recognize that there may be individuals where this is new in terms of that level. There may be Caymanians who perhaps have lived elsewhere, have seen the technology in use, and are quite comfortable and ready to go. And there are affected persons, the older persons, who might have trouble transacting business with a bank because they can't prove who they are. Some of the IDs that they used to use aren't either valid, don't travel anymore. Maybe perhaps they don't vote and they don't drive anymore. How do I prove myself in order to transact business? Scholarship students, in which they have to prove they're Caymanian to just get to the scholarship system. The education database could just be used to just tap the basic facts of who they are and eliminate that from the system and have those processing times and applications go smoother. So this is, in a nutshell, a way in which to advance the country forward into the digital method of doing business and removing the in-person benefit, which I think a number of us can relate to, having gone through post-COVID and now seeing the urgency and the technology is there to get up and do things. So individuals, I think, Charles, we were talking before we got here, you had the example of DVDL, for example.
And when somebody loses a driver's license, DVDL just can't replace that driver's license on just your word. So they need to have a police record established to say that you've lost it. So now you have to travel to DVDL. Typically what happens is people travel to DVL to then get told that information after waiting in line that they need a police record. So they travel to the police to file the police record. After doing so, then they travel to another department to pick up a piece of paper, to then take that piece of paper back to DVDL, to then apply for a replacement driver's license. And in every single one of these situations, we're standing in line, and we are the one moving around a piece of paper. So much, as Minister said, being able to do this from your couch, you need to be able to identify digitally that you are who you say you are. And then this has the potential to establish that whole process digitally.
Got you.
So the overall then benefit, particularly to Caymanians, who will mostly be here dealing with government departments. I have one document, one tool that says I'm Caymanian, once verified, and then two, be able to transact business in this new way to make my life easier and remove some of the hassle and frustration. However, the register bill, the way that it's in its current form, was done to have a slim amount of minimal data that's primarily available from or on file, say the Department of Work, and download that for all, so that anybody who opted for the card as optional, we're ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And there are individuals that are excited and are perfectly happy with that, because they take the view that this is information the government has on me already, and this is just going into a database that allows me to share at different points, not all, that's up to you, who you want to share with, and what specific purpose you want to share to make the transaction easier. Well, what's come through on the other hand, in recent, particularly over the last week, is a fundamental concern for individuals who don't want to be in the register in the first place. And so for a number of people who are on the other side of the coin, well, why would that matter to you if government already has that? But they would like a freedom of choice for a number of reasons. And that's understandable.
Mm-hmm.
So we spent considerable time reading written viewpoints that have come to in consultation. We've met with different individuals. I even recanvassed myself, family members, this weekend that really just set about listening to concerns, and rather than me talking.
Mm-hmm.
For those who have that concern, I can see that it can be new. It can be that they're fine with the existing structures, and they don't want to move to this and be in a database. And some of it is that I think when something is new, government has to gain or earn trust. From that perspective, I think what we'll do, particularly as I said, there may be individuals listening who haven't heard any of this on Friday,
yes,
is to go through the parts of the bill, of the register bill, and when we get to particular points that seem to be the main principal points of concerns for certain individuals, I will then interject with what I think I would propose to my colleagues as a change or a deletion to the bill to satisfy those concerns and provide a greater freedom of choice for individuals and a relaxation of certain parts. And certain parts may also need to be tightened to give folks that comfort that you can have as much lead time as you individually would like to see how this goes. And you might look at me and say, Andre, if you want to go into that database, you go for it. And then I have other friends or family that say, sign me up tomorrow, to give individuals choice so that this is voluntary and happens organically. So if you revert back to my Blockbuster Netflix example, there were people who went up to Netflix when it was available as a tool right away. I might have been one of those who was still taking my DVD back and forth to Blockbuster. Eventually I converted. I can't tell you when it happened. It just happened. So to allow this to be an evolution that's organic and voluntary than to compel people into a system, because it may be more convenient for government to provide that, than have it on tap for you if you want to take your time to watch how it grows and join at your option.
Okay.
So from there, I don't know if you're taking a break.
Yeah. We've have a time check now for 8 o'clock news. So we're going to go to our 8 o'clock news, and then when we return, the conversation will continue with Minister Andre Ebanks, also Mr. Ian Tibbetts, the director of the e-government unit, and Mr. Charles Brown, who's the acting deputy chief officer. We're talking about the national identification card, about the bills going to our Parliament, trying to provide clarification, answer questions that have been raised as well. So, folks, please stay tuned. The conversation will continue after the 8 o'clock news.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Studio time now by Price Right is 8 o'clock. The wait is over. Priced Right's Black Friday sale is now on.
Get our biggest deals of the year on TVs, electronics, kitchen appliances, homewares, groceries, and more.
Save up to $280 on Samsung TVs.
Save $340 on the Rydell Tripster electric bike. And save big on a range of Bluetooth speakers, sheets, and curtains, and so much more.
But hurry, sale ends Wednesday, the 30th of November.
Find all the deals at pricedright.ky.
Live better for less this Black Friday at Priced Right.
The voice of the Cayman Islands.
89.9 FM in Grand Cayman and 93.9 FM in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman.
Silver wings shining in the sunlight.
Radio Cayman.
The 8 a.m. news is brought to you by ValueMed Pharmacy. Save time and order your prescription refills online at value-medpharmacy.com. VALU-medpharmacy.com.
For today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
With your latest news, I'm Carsley Fuller. Online publication Finbold has uploaded court records that show Cayman accounts for the highest share of customers for now collapsed cryptocurrency exchange FTX. A bankruptcy filing by the platform revealed its global customer distribution at the peak of its operations. According to the documents, Cayman accounted for the highest share of customers at 22%, followed by the Virgin Islands at 11%. Finbold also points out that despite outlawing crypto transactions, mainland China represented the third largest share of FTX customers at 8%, the same value as the UK. Other notable sources of FTX customers included Singapore at 6% and the United States at 2%. Overall, the bankruptcy filings indicated that the exchange had customers in at least 27 countries globally. The Asset Recovery Interagency Network for the Caribbean held its annual general meeting in the Cayman Islands.
In all honesty, you don't have to be an expert to understand how vital regional collaboration is for identifying, tracing, and seizing the proceeds of crime. To deprive criminals from their ill-gotten gains means hitting them where it hurts the most, in their pockets. And to do that is an essential that all agencies from Customs and Border Control to inter-revenue financial investigators work close together as possible to make sure that that happens.
In his welcome remarks to the regional grouping last week, the Honorable Kenneth Bryan also shared details about the Cayman Islands and what makes it so unique, inviting delegates to return with their families for vacation. Celebrate Cayman continues to make the rounds, recognizing those who went to sea. CIG TV's Takia Smith reports.
Celebrate Cayman honored the seafarers of West Bay on Thursday, November 23rd. Over 600 seafarers from the district were recognized for their contributions as nation builders at the Wesleyan Holiness Church. The final event in the Celebrate Cayman Seafaring Honors Series will be held on Tuesday, November 29th at the King Seventh-day Adventist Church located behind Cayman Academy off Walker's Road. For more information on the Seafaring Honors and the National Seafarers Registry, visit celebratecayman.ky.
And decisions are published for the Central Planning Authority's November 9th meeting. Up first, the board heard an application for several after-the-fact items at a location on Pedro Villas Lane in Bodden Town, facing no objections. It was granted conditional approval. The CPA then refused a pitch from Patrick's Island Home Association for 3 subdivision gates. Back in March, a similar application was shot down as well. In its decision, the board said, quote, Poindexter Road has been used by persons living in the immediate area for decades and functions as an integral part of the road network in the area, and the authorities have the view that it is not reasonable to allow the gates, which would impede access to those persons who've been using the road over that period of time. Another after-the-fact application was heard next for a house and a proposed addition on Sunnyfield Road in Colliers. No objections. However, the Department of Environment did point out that the subject parcel and surrounding areas serve as a wildlife corridor connecting 2 important conservation areas, Colliers and the Salina Reserve, which are protected under the National Trust Act. The after-the-fact house was granted conditional approval, but the application for the house addition was adjourned. The last appearance of the day at 2 p.m. was by Foreshore Corporate Services, an application for a 2-lot subdivision off Edgewater Way in Georgetown, currently being used at the skate park, defunct water park, parking area, and Mike's Bar. This was granted conditional approval as well. You can find the full agenda online at planning.ky. Now with a check of international news, here's the BBC, which will take us out of the newscast. I'm Carsley Fuller from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
BBC News with Emily Thomas. Police across Europe have dismantled a drugs cartel said to be responsible for around a third of the continent's cocaine trade. The EU's police agency said it had made nearly 50 arrests in Spain, France, Belgium and the Netherlands. Officials in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu, say al-Shabaab militants are holed up in a hotel room surrounded by government forces. They say at least 4 people have been killed. The authorities in China have moved to end protests against COVID restrictions that took place in several cities over the weekend. In Shanghai, large barriers have been erected along the main protest road. The Likud party of Israel's Prime Minister-designate, Benjamin Netanyahu, has agreed to give a government post to the leader of an openly homophobic party. Avi Maoz will become the head of a new department for national Jewish identity. BBC News.
The 8 a.m. news is brought to you by ValueMed Pharmacy. Save time and order your prescription refills online at value-medpharmacy.com. VALU-medpharmacy.com. Did you know that ValueMed Pharmacy has a free online prescription service? Managing your health and medical requirements has never been easier with ValueMed. Simply visit value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com and click the Refill Prescriptions tab on our website. Fill in the information for new prescriptions or refills and choose your preferred pickup location. ValueMed on Walkers Road or Town. Then bring in your original prescription from your doctor when picking up. There's no need to stand in line and wait for your prescription. Save time and pick up prescriptions at your convenience by visiting value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
Kirk Freeport's Black Friday weekend is back in their 50th year with the biggest Cayman sale of the year. Kirk Freeport Black Weekend deals are available from Thursday 24th to Monday 28th in all stores, with the biggest deals of all at a special reopening of Kirk Freeport on Cardinal Avenue on Friday and Saturday only, with up to 75% off all clearance jewelry and watches. From Thursday to Monday, you will find deals at La Perfumery and Strand locations, and you'll get 50th anniversary sweepstake entries on all purchases over $100. The 50th anniversary Black Friday weekend is our biggest yet. KirkFreeport.com for details.
Whether it's routine care or highly complex surgery, when it comes to your health, you want the best. Health City has Cayman's most comprehensive range of in-house medical services. Recognized for quality and excellence, Health City brings together expert doctors, the best technology, and the latest techniques to understand your health and ensure you get the care you need. From Camana Bay to East End, you can trust the team at Health City. Health City, world-class healthcare within your reach.
Healthcare Pharmacy, caring about your health for the past 25 years. Radio Cayman's premier health show.
Alzheimer's and dementia, are they the same disorder?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question.
For the Health of It with Tara Bush.
For the Health of It with Tara Bush.
Is heard on Saturdays at 9:30 a.m. and on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Brought to you by Healthcare Pharmacy in Grand Harbor, where they care about your health. Transfer and refill your prescription online. Visit healthcarepharmacy.ky or call 947-8900. Healthcare Pharmacy, now with a new and second location in Governor's Square. The new Healthcare Pharmacy in Governor's Square is open Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Healthcare Pharmacy, where they care about your health.
The 8:12 a.m. weather report, brought to you by CG Britcay, where people come first.
Good morning, everyone. Hello? Hello? Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Okay, I see we have just about everyone, and of course Tom drops off, as per usual. Let's just wait a minute here. He always comes right back, and we're almost ready, and... oh, whoever's dog that is, please go on mute. Why won't it let me share my screen? Okay, looks like we're ready to start.
We're like a video conference with no technical issues. CG Britcay. Good like that.
Good morning. Let's take a look at the latest weather report. Current temperature is 81 degrees. Relative humidity is 85%. The barometric pressure is 29.96 inches and rising. The wind is out of the northeast at 3 knots. Overnight low temperature was 77 degrees. Synopsis indicate light northeasterly winds and seas during the day, with winds and seas expected to increase into the night as the pressure gradient increases across the northwest Caribbean. Radar images show isolated showers around the Cayman area. Now, the forecast for today calling for partly cloudy skies with a 20% chance of showers, and temperatures will rise to the upper 80s. Winds will be east to northeast at 5 to 10 knots, and seas will be slight with wave heights of 1 to 3 feet. Pretty much the same for tonight, partly cloudy skies with a 20% chance of showers, and temperatures dipping to the mid-70s tonight. Winds will be east to northeast at 10 to 15 knots, and seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. High tide will be this afternoon at 1:59, low tide again tonight at 8:48. The sun will set this evening at 5:44 and will rise tomorrow morning at 6:42. And the outlook is calling for moderate winds and seas through Wednesday morning.
The 8:12 a.m. weather report brought to you by CG Britcay, where people come first.
Head east on Cove Road. Sharp left on Church Street. Sharper left. No, your other left. Did I say left? Nope, you missed it. Okay, I'm lost.
With money-saving bundling options for home and motor, we're like a GPS that doesn't steer you wrong. CG Britcay. Good like that.
Let's stop and ask for directions.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Planning a meeting, event, or office celebration? Visit subway.ky to place your catering order today.
Good morning once again. Let's take a look this time at traffic. On the Linford Pearson Highway, traffic is busy. Slight delays expected as you head on down to Georgetown. Westbound traffic on Crew Road is busy as well. Eastbound traffic is moving along light to moderate. Edward Street light traffic coming from the West Bay 4-way stop. Traffic flowing at a good pace. As we look to Godfrey Nixon Way and Eastern Avenue, traffic is moderate in both directions. Coming off of Bobby Thompson Way, steady traffic as well. Off the Linford Pearson Highway on Agnes Way. And you can expect some slight delays as you're heading down to your final destination. As we look to downtown Georgetown and Edward Street, light to moderate. And Shedden Road, moderate flow of traffic in both directions. And traffic coming off of the Esley Tibbetts Highway is steady and continuing on to North Sound Road. As we look to Industrial Park area from the Butterfield roundabout, traffic is moderate in both directions. That's what's happening on your roads. Join us again at about 10 minutes after 12 o'clock. We'll give you another traffic report. Remember, click it or ticket.
When you're craving something big, something tasty that gives you that lip-smacking satisfaction, something that hits the spot, there is nothing better than a footlong from Subway.
It's pretty tasty.
Filling and full of flavor. Try our new sweet onion steak teriyaki with a twist. Or the classic chicken teriyaki. Top it with green pepper, onions, cheese, and that sweet onion teriyaki sauce, all piled on your favorite artisanal bread. Satisfy that craving with a footlong from Subway.
Fresh, delicious, tasty, meaty.
Let's make it a meal with a drink, chips, and cookies. There is nothing better than a footlong from Subway.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Planning a meeting, event, or office celebration? Visit subway.ky to place your catering order today.
At Kirk's Home Center, we can make your life much better. We got it all together. We got a great deal in store for you. From cookware to stereos, from power tools to plumbing supplies. Yeah, we got the best goods with the best price and a service to make you smile. At Kirk's Home Center, we got a great deal in store for you.
After more than 20 years, the Cayman Islands Air Show is back. It's all eyes to the sky on Saturday, December 3rd for a thrilling air show on 7 Mile Public Beach. Witness amazing aerobatic maneuvers as world-class pilots put on a stunning show. Then see the planes and meet the aviators at the Island Air Hangar. Parking permitted at designated sites with free shuttle buses to the events. For all the details and event lineup, visit CaymanAirshow.com. The Cayman Islands Air Show. returns Saturday, December 3rd, 10 a.m. at 7 Mile Public Beach and 3 p.m. at the Island Air Hangar.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system. For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. It is my pleasure to have in the studio with me this morning Minister Andre Archer, Mr. Ian Tibbetts, the Director, Mr. Andre Ebanks. I think I said, that the birthday thing this morning with Andre Archer, that's why. Sorry about that, Minister. So Minister Andre Ebanks, Mr. Ian Tibbetts, the Director of the Government Unit, and the Deputy Chief Officer, Acting Deputy Chief Officer in the Ministry, Mr. Charles Brown as well. So gentlemen, I'm going to share an article with you because I think based on some of the messages that I'm receiving from persons and some of the blogs that I have read as well, some individuals' concept of a national identification card and what they saw it as, a document issued by government, probably mandatory, acceptable throughout the island, acceptable by government, and it basically said what your status was. Now, there are other persons who interpret the word national in terms of national identification card that it means for nationals only as well. So that is another concept that we need to clarify as well. But this article written in the Compass on the 10th of September 2007, and it says that for the third time in the past 2 decades, the Cayman Islands lawmakers have approved a motion to support a national identification card system. Government backbencher, Mr. MLA Alfonso Wright, is hoping 3 times is a charm. The national ID is something the legislature has talked about for some 20 years now, Mr. Wright said during the debate on his private member's motion. It appears it was a motion that the government felt obligated to accept but had no intention of doing anything about it. Now, I also know that I, along with Mr. Alfonso Wright and others, traveled to St. Lucia to look at their national identification system at that point, sometime in 2007 as well. So here we have the genesis of national identification card. I will go and I will try to find the Hansards, the debate on this, and it'll be interesting to see what was said and what, if anything, was any type of description was given as to what type of system we would have had in 2007 had that come to fruition as well. Minister?
Do you said 2007?
2007, yes.
Wow. Okay. It's very interesting. Yeah, we might look for those Hansards as well. So yes, I think taking a few points out, conceptually, that is what a card can offer, is a government-issued identification card that's legally acceptable throughout the country. Conceptually, that's what this still is. But I suppose from 2007 to 2022, there's been quite a lot of technological advancement.
Yes.
And we are deeper in the digital environment. And in some ways, some folks might argue that Cayman is behind. So the added feature in this context, going forward almost 20 years, is being able to have the interlinking of government agencies database to have your unique card number in which you can utilize at your option how to transact, what information they see, and be able to transact with them based on just that information alone. So, Ian, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you had a similar analogy in relation to the voter registration card.
Yeah, I mean, it's the concept. If you think about it, it isn't about the voter ID card. It's about the voter's register, and the card is a tool associated with the register.
Right.
And it's not too dissimilar here in as much as the identity register, and then the identification card being a tool to allow you to leverage that in the various ways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then in this modern example, to take that a step further, for identification documents that are issued in Cayman, you could potentially then have the voter registration card linked to this card, your driver's license linked to this card, and then you then begin to develop a freedom that you just have this card which is what I think you read from 2007 was the original vision. So that again is probably useful that you were able to pull that up. I'd be grateful if you forward that to me.
Certainly,
that would be very interesting. But going back to what we said at the beginning of the show, what we might do now is go through the sections, the main sections of the register bill, since the feedback that we received is more of a concern on that bill.
Yes.
And then I will then interject in points where we have listened and thought, okay, this really isn't to make government's life easier. If our true intent and purpose is to make the residents' life easier, which would include Caymanians and resident non-Caymanians, so they will all be able to participate in transacting easier with government on the same footing. The additional feature for a Caymanian is that you finally have an ID that says you're Caymanian, which is a non-Caymanian would not be able to obviously get. But then I will then interject as we summarize the main clauses of the register bill, where I think we can appropriately accommodate individuals who have a concern.
Mm-hmm. Now, you said the non-Caymanian wouldn't be able to get a card that says Caymanian status, but they would be eligible for a card with additional details on there.
And it could say or have a ID code or what their status actually is. So I don't know that there's anything necessarily wrong with that, because you would want to be able to have everyone able to have an ID that chooses to, and then be able to transact with government in the digital environment, and then potentially some elements of private sector.
Okay.
So, Minister, thank you for highlighting the benefits of the digital realm that we're in over a flat card, in that this card is intended to print much less information on it, and to be a smaller subset of the data that's actually in the register. So, for instance, your address information will not be on the card, but you, as the citizen, could choose to put your address information into the register. So I'll just give a brief overview of different aspects of the clauses. So the purposes, as laid out in clause 3
in the register bill,
is really to allow persons to prove certain facts about themselves, to provide any service. This is for government to provide any service under any other enactment, and to enable interoperability between the register and public authorities, so we essentially can create a joined-up government.
Okay.
That's really a summarization of the purposes of the bill. Now, the data that we're talking about in the register is really a minimum set of data that allows a person to be identified and allows them to share those basic sets of data. And it's broken into two aspects. One is called identity facts. This is the absolute minimal core, and that involves your full name, date of birth, the nationality, sex, immigration status, and the identification code. So that's the core. The related facts are essentially the maze, the optional elements. And the related facts are place of birth, the ID code of the person's parents, delegated authority, that's if you're a child or you need somebody to act on your behalf, or you're the guardian for somebody, height, eye color, the physical signature, your physical signature, a photograph, And then principal contact information includes email addresses, regular addresses, telephone number, emergency contact information, and any other residential addresses if applicable. Now, that section has the provision, because we're building the system for the first time, has the provision to be expanded by regulations. And in Section K, under the definitions for related facts, it says, such additional categories of information consistent with the purpose of this act as may be prescribed.
So this is where I'll interject, where we've gotten feedback, and individuals have looked at me and said, well, Minister, I get in the definition of related facts A through J. I can live with that. But I don't know what K is or what it can consume of, and you, Ian, and Charles might be nice chaps, but if you're not here and it's not your vision, where could this go? And then there would potentially be no consultation, because then that could be prescribed, say, by cabinet.
Right.
So what I would propose, again, in an effort to gain trust in the system, and it just so happens that we had our time constraints on Friday, and now this show falls on a Monday. It just happens to be the weekly caucus meeting on Monday. I'd propose to my colleagues in caucus that we would delete K, so that we would provide certainty in related facts that it's just those, and the executive arm would have to return to Parliament to make a case to add an additional field. So that's a proposal that I'm going to propose. To a proposed change that I would suggest to my colleagues in caucus.
Under further on in Section 3, they also says who can be in the register, and it limits that to Caymanians, permanent residents, and any person that's legal or ordinary resident in the Cayman Islands. So as Minister was saying, it's everybody has the ability to be in the card that has a right to reside here. So visitors, for instance, are not allowed to be in here. And then clause 4 goes on to
before you go to 4. Sure. Let me just pause you there. So clause 3, which is entitled or has the heading establishment of the identification register. So 3.2, clause 3, subclause 2, is what Charles was just referring to there about the category of persons that shall be in the register. So this is what I referred to earlier at the top of the show, but I'll recap for those who may not have heard me. Originally, the card bill is voluntary. Originally, to have the tool available and ready, the vision was to have the register have that subset of data that Charles just referenced in those definitions available for everyone. And then if you chose to have the card, then you would be able to start. But as I mentioned, there are individuals who have a number of understandable reasons that they want to be heard, that they don't want to be in the register in the first place. So the proposal that I will have and suggestion I will have for colleagues in caucus is in 3.2, the following person shall be enrolled, to delete shall and replace it with may be enrolled, so that persons will be able to then opt into the system and then be able to see how it goes for themselves, and then others may be able to take it up over time. There's another change, but continue, Charles.
So
post change.
In clause 4, it talks about the form of the register, and that's up to the registrar to determine. So we don't legislate technology. And right now, you'd mentioned going to St. Lucia to see their system. We've personally traveled to Estonia to see the latest and greatest in the digital forms now of systems. So technology isn't instituted. It's at the discretion. 5 is about the register and persons in the register. So it says the registrar shall make an entry in the register in respect of the persons under subsection 3.2, which is what Minister was alluding to. And the entry shall include the identity facts in relation to the person. So that shall, as Minister is mentioning, is where that shall become a may.
Yeah. And we will be guided by legislative counsel on this, but they may have a different lead-in to say the person who chooses
or makes an
application to the register, then it becomes the applicant directing the registrar.
Right.
So they're giving more and more control to the applicant.
Clause 6 is really about you now accessing information in the register, and that might be, a physical copy of getting a download of what is there, or it might be a reproduction online, so that a person can actually see what their information is in the register. Changes to information in the register is under 7. And there's also a duty to notify the registrar of changes under 8. And that's in particular for examples like if somebody changed their name overseas and it wasn't recorded here within the islands, there's a duty of care to notify the registrar of said changes. Or if a person was born overseas, there's a duty to update the registrar. But there's also a principle baked in that when dealing with something specifically from a public authority here, that the source of record can also update. And that's just from an efficiency point of view. So if you do a deed poll at General Registry, the onus is not on the person to update the registrar. That would be transmitted directly from the registrar to the registrar from General Registry. But this, again, now is only if you are in the register.
And I would go on to say that obviously in those cases you're probably going to have to inform the registrar for a name change that of your identification code, so that they can provide you that update that information in the register.
Gotcha. Yes.
So that's really.
Under Clause 9, it talks about authentication and verification. So you need to be verified as you before being entered. And then from then on, you can prove and authenticate that you are you through the digital features that we've been talking about. 10 is about the assurance of data in the register, and there's the ability to build a system of assurance. We talk about having the ability to verify an address, similar to how you do with a utility bill. In a future state, that might be digitally done rather than just a piece of paper. And delegated authority we had mentioned is related to parents under Clause 11. In Part 3, I won't go into all the details of this, but in Part 3, it gives certain powers to the registrar. Obviously, we're dealing with the data of a person, so he has to have the right to request that data in particular formats. Or her. And it goes into the duties of the registrar. And under the duties of the registrar, another point of debate has been item H. So this is Clause 14H, where it says facilitating international obligations related to the register.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you there so that we can go to a commercial break, and then when we return, we can get right into that. And that will cover one of the questions that I had, because in conversations with some individuals, they speak about the amount of authority that the legislation gives to the registrar, and this obviously will address that concern as well. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
JN Money touchdown. Send the money now. Reach wow. You say you need some money, JN Money, I can send it in a hurry. Get through quick when you come collect your cash, or use a money card and swipe it in a flash. Send funds to any bank, yeah. Pay your bills quick, yeah. Low fees, you know what it, yeah. JN Money, we are pick, yeah. Send and receive funds at any JN Money location. It's fast, affordable, and convenient. Money touchdown with JN Money. Send funds to any bank, yeah. Pay your bills quick, yeah. Low fees, you know what it, yeah. JN Money, we are pick, yeah.
Call 345-945-2014 for details. Available at JN Money locations across the Cayman Islands.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens,
and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
Can you imagine your home completely organized? At Brand Source Custom Closets, we can. We specialize in designing and building custom closets and storage units for any room in your home, including the garage. With tailored designs and custom LED lighting solutions to fit your lifestyle and budget. Our custom closets expert is committed to enhancing the value of your home with a solution that is uniquely yours. Visit our showroom or call 623-6774 to schedule a no-obligation appointment with our design expert. Brand Source Custom Closets, 209 Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park.
Excuse me, I noticed you from afar.
Really? Me?
Well, not you. The KFC sandwich you're eating?
Oh, Zinger.
Sorry, I'm not trying to be funny.
No, it's called the Zinger Sandwich. Crunchy, juicy, 100% chicken breast, crisp lettuce, sweet mayo on a seeded bun with a little zing. KFC's chicken is not factory breaded, frozen, and refried like the Burger Boys. Customize your KFC Zinger and dip it in barbecue sauce.
Wow, now I'm starting to notice you too.
KFC, it's finger licking good.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, Minister Andre Ebanks. Mr. Ian Tibbetts, Director of E-Government Unit, and Mr. Charles Brown, who's the Acting Deputy Chief Officer in the Ministry. We're talking about the National Identification Card Bill as well as the Registrar's Bill. And I had to interrupt you, Mr. Brown, to go to the commercial break, so right back over to you, sir.
Thank you, OC. And just while we were on break, you brought up a point, which was a question from a caller.
Yes.
As it related to the clause 6, subsection 7, related to classes of persons. And those classes of persons really just refers back to clause 3, where we're talking about the Caymanians, the permanent residents, and anybody that has a right to reside within the islands. And that becomes a less sensitive issue, given that it's voluntary to enter into the register to begin with.
Yeah.
So back to the powers of the registrar. As I was mentioning, the registrar needs certain powers if interoperability is going to work in a way that is envisioned, in that a joined-up government, the sharing of information needs to happen between one entity to another public authority. So if a particular director wanted to share information and wanted to just do it via email, that's going to be unacceptable. The registrar needs to have powers to dictate that it shall be done over the interoperability solution that has been developed and is in development. So that's why there's a level of power that he or she has to have the authority to command how to do this in both a very secure way and an efficient way. And under the duties of the registrar, similarly, they need the ability to establish the system and to ensure that information kept is accurate and encrypted as necessary. And I think we had highlighted under H that there was wording in there about international obligations.
Right. So this is, again, the Register Bill, Clause 14, Subclause 1H, and which currently reads, facilitate, so this is in relation to the registrar's duties.
Yes.
Facilitate international obligations relating to the register. So initially, that I think was our interpretation of making sure that the registrar, in terms of the tech that is used, facilitates international either codes or standards. But I think it now could be read, at least brought to my attention, it could be read in terms of whether the registrar is facilitating some sort of international obligation under a treaty.
Right.
Or
Sharing of information.
or
Yes.
financial purposes, which is not that. So when I spoke about it at the end, I said, well, the tech that we're going to employ and the procurements and the standards we have to are going to be international standards anyway, so I don't really need the bill to say that. So I would propose to my colleagues for the avoidance of doubt, that age just be deleted.
Okay.
Under Clause 15, Cabinet can issue general policy direction, which is very standard in every other act or bill. There's accountabilities to the registrar, and obviously this bill establishes the office of the registrar, and therefore the registrar needs to be given the latitude to delegate certain duties down to staff as well. There's a note of conflict of interest under 18. And then there's the termination of the registrar. And the registrar shall be a civil servant. And I think, given that it hasn't been mentioned publicly as clearly on this forum, we also need to say that the data in the register is on island. It is not internationally stored. It is on island. So the registrar is not a private entity. We've heard of sentiments that we could farm out the register and farm out the registrar. Not at all. It is a civil servant and controlled under the PSML. PSML.
Now, is there a particular section in the legislation that would suggest that, why someone would have that thought that could be privatized?
It's just that the registrar has the power that is needed, but also there are agreements that need to be made to establish the technology and setting up the system, and those elements are being misconstrued as that could be outsourced. It cannot be outsourced, will not be outsourced. It's just in the establishment of the system that we can enter into agreements, government can enter into agreements through the registrar for the creation of certain elements of the system.
I think that was in 14 too.
Yep.
Right. That's
Section
14.2. Yeah. So under Part 4, it's the assignment of the identification code. What we've been saying throughout all of our public relations interactions is that this code now is essentially a numeric equivalent of your name. It's not supposed to be a secret. It's supposed to be shareable, and it is supposed to persist. So irrespective of how many passports you have with the passport number, every time you get a new passport, that passport number changes. This code does not change, and therefore you can have multiple nationalities tied to the ID code, or multiple passports. You can obviously understand that you are the same person. You could change your name, but your identity hasn't changed. Yeah. Part 5, duty of cooperation with public authorities. And that's about the obligations that we had mentioned, bringing clarity of the type of information needs to be submitted and transmitted back to the registrar. Part 6 is, I think, another area where some individuals have expressed concern. So we'll spend a little bit of time here. So 27 is about access to the register yourself. So either you as an individual, and it's very similar to 6, but this is about you being able to see the information on you in the register. As we had mentioned, this is government giving back to everybody their own identity with the government, and in a way that they have control over it.
Yes.
So 27 is about that access. 28 is when you, as a citizen, interact with a private entity, somebody from the private sector, and you're giving your consent to that private entity to share information. So it could be a bank or some other entity, and you're saying, yes, please get my information from the register because that's the most up to date. I keep everything up to date there. You have the ability to get it, and I'm consenting to that.
Now, can I be ahead of you a little bit? How would that transact? The person giving permission for the private sector to be able to access
So
the government held data?
Few ways. So under 30, I'll just jump ahead. Under
Sure.
30, that private entity has to tell you for the purposes why they're asking for your data, and they also have to log when they requested it. Similarly, there's a log against your register entry that whichever entity, both private or government, has accessed your data. So when you log into the system, you would be able to see transparently who has accessed your information in the register. And that's groundbreaking for the Cayman Islands. That'd be the first time that we have that level of transparency.
So one example would be, for instance, I just reinsured my vehicle the other day. Or I switched insurance companies, had to provide a copy of my driver's license again, had to provide a copy of the logbook. Of course, I would get the evidence of insurance from my insurance company, but those are things, the driver's license and the logbook held by government.
So this, what you're highlighting, OC, is why it's so important to have a joined-up government approach in dealing with this particular aspect. From an efficiency point of view, that could have been one query. There could be a package set of data that's asked to support your application for renewal that comes from the government side. And that could be grouped, and if you give permission for that grouping of questions to be asked, all of that information could theoretically be given to the insurance company with one click at your consent.
Yeah.
I'll just interject. It's interesting because a family member of mine on the weekend used that example and said, Andre, I hope that you all are successful for those of us who would like to use the tool. Because as fate or the Lord would have it, that was the exact example that he raised with me, that he just gone through this and he said, this tool has the ability to be so efficient that I went through this insurance form all over again with the same data that I've already given them. This would have the opportunity for me to share at my option, upload the information without me having to go down or email, scan documents in, or physically take them down. I could literally do it from my bed. And I said, yeah, that is the potential of this tool, and that's the benefit, the time and the efficiency that's given back to the citizen or the resident.
Okay, we're going to jump to another commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
What's that? No sugar, same amazing taste? Coca-Cola Zero Sugar is here to stay.
No one can stop me when I taste the feel.
Classic taste, pure satisfaction. Be sure to stop into any Tortuga location and get your own case of Coke Zero. Or grab an ice-cold one straight from the cooler. Brought to you by Tortuga Distributors Limited. Coca-Cola, taste the feeling, Cayman.
West Bay, home to Barkas National Park, the touristy flair, a family community, a political powerhouse. From sports enthusiasts to car aficionados, affection for silver thatch rope. No matter how far you may venture, West Bay will always be where the heart is. Home will always be in West Bay. West Bay Pharmacy, caring for your home and your family. West Bay Pharmacy in Centennial Towers. Convenient, quality care is just around the corner.
We think it's time you crossed over to a new vehicle. And with the Toyota Corolla Cross now at Vance Motors, you have plenty of reasons to make the switch. The crossover body and hybrid engine is a sleek design in a sturdy structure with a spacious interior that opens to extensive cargo space. Stuck in traffic? The high-performance self-charging hybrid system automatically switches between gas and electric vehicle mode, helping you lower both fuel costs and carbon emissions. The Corolla Cross has full LED lighting inside and out, an integrated display audio system with energy monitor, and a dual-zone climate control system to ensure comfort for all. Test drive the new Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid today at Vance Motors, Walkers Road. It's that time of year again when our spelling bees are buzzing around with activity. Join us at the Lions Center on Wednesday, November 30th to show your support for our best young spellers during the 40th staging of the Lions Club of Grand Cayman's secondary spelling bee competition. The spell-off begins at 10 a.m. Don't be late. Brought to you by the Department of Education Services and the Lions Club of Grand Cayman.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. Without reintroducing my guests, I'm going to go straight over to the last person that had the mic, Mr. Charles Brown. Just to remind our listeners that we're talking about the National Identification Card System as well as the Register. These are two bills that are going to Parliament on the 7th of December when Parliament convenes. Mr. Brown.
So just before we broke, we had a very interesting example of insurance and how that would work. I'm just going to ask Ian to just flush out just a little more detail on how the details might actually fit.
Sure. Technologically.
Yeah, because what my concern hearing it was people could misinterpret what we said to mean that all of that information would have to be in the register so that that query could have gotten to those types of information, and that's absolutely not the intent. I mean, if you look at the identity facts and the related facts, it doesn't include any of that other information. However, a query can have different. It can allow them to serve up information from different places for their purposes. So they could only get the identity information from the register, but they could allow the other entities to provide their pieces of information. So I think it's really just making it clear that with interoperability, it doesn't mean that you're putting everything into one place so that the person can use their data overall. It is that once they can identify their data in different places, they can choose to share their information as a seeming whole, but it's not actually a whole.
And that's just so important to reinforce, because we've heard sentiments of we don't want our medical information in here, we don't want our et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can add anything to it. The register is a minimum set of information related to your identity, and as it's specified in identity facts and related facts, that's the list, and we're not intending for that list to balloon in any way, and that's the whole point for Minister's first point of consideration was the removing the regulatory power there. It removes the expansion capability of that list to build trust.
And maybe, because I do want to get to 29 so we don't have time, but correct me if I'm wrong, Ian, to maybe illustrate that in the real context. So my bedside table of all of my ID documents is the minimum set that I have. So I now would go down to the insurance company with that minimum set to say this is who I am, and then want to apply for whatever services they have, and then I would get additional information through that company. What I got from what you said there is that minimum data set moves from my bedside table into a digital format of just that minimal data that I can allow someone to now see digitally rather than me walking it down there or driving it down there. And then for the service that I'm trying to either procure or purchase from that private vendor, I'll allow them to see that for that specific purpose at my option. And then they might supply me with additional data or the product that I'm seeking to purchase.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that we tend to overlook is a fundamental in the insurance industry, for example, is that they will only insure somebody that has a legitimate interest in what they're trying to insure. So you can't go and insure something else and cause harm to it for their benefit. So you do have to identify yourself normally with insurance. And so yes, it is about you having enough information there that you can share with the insurance company that they can then confirm
That
that
I'm
the
me.
owner, you're you,
Mhm.
and you are the person that has the interest in this vehicle or this health insurance or whatever it may be. So yes, it's being able to use this minimal data set about who you are to connect and facilitate services with other pieces of information from other places.
And in doing so, you reduce your oversharing reality that you currently have. So when you take your driver's license to them, take a photocopy of your driver's license. Well, they're getting your address, if you have any disabilities, et cetera, et cetera. They might only need to know X, Y, Z. In the new paradigm, they only have to ask for X, Y, Z.
Right.
Yeah.
So to return now, because this is
29.
To 29.
So under clause 29, it's about accessing, as we had mentioned under the purposes, the ability to access other, to satisfy other acts, any other public authority's particular function that the citizen wants to interact with. This is on the government side. That information can now be availed to the public authority through the register. And I think, Minister, we have a provision there that...
Right. So at the moment, this would then allow access to public authorities based on your option. But a concern has been raised for those, for example, who don't want to be in the register in the first place and would like the flexibility or the freedom to be able to choose if they opt into the system, would then say, okay, that's fine, Minister, if your colleagues accept the change to clauses 3 and 5 to make this optional, I might still get locked into the ID card, because what if the public authorities or the agencies say, well, we'll only transact business with people who have the ID card and the code.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what I'm going to suggest to colleagues is that we have a clear provision in 29 that the public authorities or agencies aren't able to discriminate against someone who doesn't have the ID and the code. So that way the person who doesn't opt in doesn't feel as though they have been indirectly pulled into the system because they can no longer transact business.
Right.
Because this could be essential government services. So if you were to compare that to my Blockbuster Netflix example, those are private entities, and eventually market forces dictate and Blockbuster is gone. But for government public services, you're going to have to build in that public authorities wouldn't, if they were to do so, get over eager and say, this is working so fabulous and it's so efficient, we'll only transact business with you if you have the card and the code. I think we have to build in the flexibility, just as we did in the card bill, that you can apply for the card in person or physically, not just online, for those who are not operating in the digital environment.
Yes.
And
Good point.
Also, from the efficiency standpoint, this is one of the main areas of achieving a joined-up government. This will be the clause that achieves the new paradigm. And there's been some misinformation about essentially once a government entity is connected, then they can just poke around as they wish.
Mm-hmm.
That is nothing further from the case. Under clause 29, subsection 3, you see there that it requires compliance with the Data Protection Act. So you have to have a legitimate interest through the function of law or a legitimate interest that establishes why you are asking for that information in the first place. And the other piece of this is to remember that any time a public authority does check your information in the register, it is being logged. And you, when you log into your own profile, would have access to see that they have seen your information, and you can make the correlation. Was I actually?
So there's an audit trail for you
trail
to the individual
to see.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing is what we don't think about in this scenario today in a paper world. When with a digital, system like this and interoperability and logging and etc. that's called for, then you have that by default that record has to be maintained here of that information. In the paper form, if somebody mischievously, let's just say, right, or even if they have legitimate reason, seize that information, there's no way for you to know that information was disclosed or that it was seen. This is one of the ways that this brings transparency and accountability because of the audit trails that it leaves versus in the paper world, you don't have those audit trails. You can implement processes that help to do it, but it's an honor system.
Okay, gentlemen, just like Christmas comes once a year, commercial breaks come every 15 minutes here on Radio Cayman. Folks, top of the hour headline news. When we return, the conversation will continue. We do have several WhatsApp messages. We're trying to slip some in to the discussion as we go because they may be related to a particular section that our panelists are talking about at that point in time as well, but we're going to apportion some segment of this discussion this morning to address other issues or to read some of the comments that you have made, and also to open up the phone lines for you to call as well. So folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
We give you honor and praise, adoration and glory.
Radio Cayman.
Praise time.
Praise him, praise him. Come and let's praise the Lord. Come and let's praise the Lord. Praise him in the morning and in the evening. Oh, let's praise the Lord.
Praise time in the morning.
Praise him, praise him.
Weekdays 6 to 6:30 a.m.
Radio Cayman, waking you up.
Rock my soul in the blues of my faith in your hand. Rock my soul in the blues of my faith in your hand.
Praise time.
I know he cares. He'll always be there. Oh, yeah. Praise him, praise him, praise him.
Praise time.
Set your clock for 6 a.m. or you will miss it.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
From Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman, we've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
After a special session to elect a new Speaker of the House, Parliament is back on December 7th for a second meeting of the 2022-23 session. Several bills will be tabled, including the Anti-Corruption Amendment Bill, Customs and Border Control Bill, Gambling Bill, and the Utility Regulation and Competition Amendment Bill. The authorities in China are seeking to end protests against COVID restrictions that spread to some of its biggest cities over the weekend. Police are out in force, and it's unclear whether further protest will take place tonight. Several people were detained in Shanghai earlier at a site that saw protests on 2 consecutive nights, and police erected barriers. Large crowds took to the streets in Beijing, Shanghai, and elsewhere in the weekend to protest against China's zero-COVID policy, which features mass testing and snap lockdowns. The demonstrations are an unprecedented challenge to President Xi Jinping, with some calling on him to resign. The BBC says it's, quote, extremely concerned about the treatment of one of its journalists who was beaten and arrested by police while covering the protests. Protesters say lockdown rules hampered rescue efforts at a fire that killed 10 people. Chinese authorities deny this. Those are your headlines. I'm Karsley Fuller.
For the latest in news and information,
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, Minister Andre Ebanks, Mr. Ian Tibbetts, the Director of the Government Unit, and Mr. Charles Brown, who is the Acting Chief Officer in the Ministry. We're talking about the National Identification Card as well as the Registrar's Bill. or register, is it?
Register bill.
The register bill as well. And we have, lots of questions coming in. Some persons may, based on the questions that they have raised, obviously have not had the opportunity to listen to the entire show from its inception this morning. So we may want to sort of like rehash what we've covered so far for their benefit, Minister.
I would suggest that we finalize the overview because we're nearly there.
Okay.
And then perhaps we can do a recap of what we've decided, of some of the questions you believe have already been answered. And then we can open up the phone lines and take the questions from there. But some of those questions questioners might realize that their question has been dealt with.
Yes.
And maybe we just need to recap.
Excellent.
So we're at clause 30, and it's about records, the recording of the access information. So as I mentioned, any entity that is accessing a person's data on the register, and it's again the minimum set of identity facts, related facts, it's logged. So it is logged on the register itself that the person has access to it, and they also have to state the purpose for the request for access and log it on their side as well. So it's being logged in two sections. Under 30, there is a provision for investigative powers, and the public would understand that if an investigation is going on, you can't tip off the person that you are investigating them. And because there's a transparent element for the first time that everything is being logged and a person can access it and see it, then there's also a very valid justification that in an investigation there would not be a transparent logging to the individual. However, that information, even under an investigative procedure, is being logged in the exact same manner. It's just that it's accessible to an oversight body to hold any individual, public authority, regulatory body doing the investigation to account. And I just want to highlight one last point in relation to this, and I think just hearing the public sentiments, a lot of individuals don't know that the Data Protection Act makes specific references to these exemptions, and under subclause 4, in all of its
clause
parts
30.
of clause 30. So that's clause 30, subclause 4. Those provisions come directly from the Data Protection Act under section 19 and section 21. So there are already provisions there in the Data Protection Act for exemptions of the notification. This bill goes a step further and says even in the cases where those investigations are being done and the exemptions exist, there will still be logging, and the records could still be brought into account by an oversight body.
Okay.
And so one thing that I think Charles is worth clarifying, under section 33, subclause 3, where it talks about a requesting entity shall keep a record of every request for access to information in the register, including the purpose for which that request is made. You notice who has to keep the record of the purpose. It is the requesting entity, because you wouldn't, for example, want if HSA or let's say some customs or some is requesting, the registrar shouldn't know why they're requesting that information. That's a matter between them and the person, not between them and between the registrar and the person. The registrar's role is around the identity.
Right, and irrespective of their logging, there's the logging on the registrar side as well, that it has been accessed. So it's double logged. There's two sets of logs here. One is the requesting entity making a log, recording the log, and then the registrar recording the log that it has been accessed.
Okay. Now, Mr. Tibbetts, last week when you spoke highly of the Computer Services Department and what they have, one of our listeners had a query about where the data would reside, whether or not it would reside off island or on island.
So the data, the register, the technology solution that is being prepared has been set up for the data to be exclusively on island.
Okay, Minister?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a common question.
Yeah.
But I think we may have reiterated it on a few programs now, but happy to reiterate it again.
Yeah.
The data remains in the Cayman Islands.
Part 7 is about confidentiality of the register and how the data is to be maintained within the office of the registrar. And there's a duty of confidentiality as one would expect. Part 8 is about offenses. And I think these are fairly standard offenses that a person would expect related to handling personal data. However, I think there's one area that's been highlighted as being misconstrued, that if you don't put in all of the information in the register, that you would somehow be creating an offense. And that's just not the case. So now there's 2 layers to clarify. One is that the register is voluntary, so you only enter it as you determine fit. And then once in the register, there is a duty to update the registrar of changes, but as we mentioned, there's some optional fields in there, like address. So if you don't put an address in, there's no need to put an address. It's up to you. But what we have to require is that whatever information is there, so if, for instance, you do put your address there, we have to rely on it. Therefore, it has to be either up to date or it has to be removed. So just wanted to clarify that there's no offense for a blank field on the optional side.
And are there paper forms now that you fill out and it's an offense if you added false information?
Definitely. Anything that's the whole purpose of signing to an application. I know that DVDL, for instance, is like that you are declaring that this is where you live, and if you didn't, you've committed an offense for lying. Yeah. You've lied to the government.
And you come back from overseas and you fill out your declaration form. If the authorities were to check your bag and you had a whole heap of computers and you said you had nothing, that would be an offense because you filled out that form.
Exactly,
with false
information.
So this is the digital version of that concept.
Okay. Again, I'm going to come over to you, Mr. Ian. Someone was inquiring about the security of the system and the way to deter hackers and stuff. And again, you spoke last week about the robustness of the Computer Services Department here in the Cayman Islands and their system.
So, I think well, first of all, I think one thing that would be helpful for people to bear in mind is that at a legislative stage or in a law, you got to be very cautious in how you deal with the technology component, because technology changes so fast, right? And especially for security, because what's adequate for security today will not be adequate for security tomorrow. So the law needs to obligate to have adequate or appropriate security. And I think the other side of it, though, which is a little bit something the side people might not want to hear, is that there is no absolute safety, in physical form or in digital form. There is always going to be a risk of somewhat, an element of risk. The key is that you put together processes to detect when there's a possibility of a risk, and you then prevent, and you have mechanisms in place to minimize the impact and recover, etc. So I'm not trying to avoid the question.
No, understood.
From a legislative perspective, the law has to obligate, or needs to obligate, that there is adequate security. In terms of, now let's talk a little bit about the actual technical.
Yeah.
So their security has to be all-encompassing. Security, starting with, the ideal scenario, as we've done, security by design. So we don't have an object and then try to retrofit security to it. So how do we build this in from the concept stage? So, okay, you're going to have data in here. Well, a lot of that data is already in the public domain. If you look at the voters register, for example, you can search it online and find the names and addresses of people already, right? But irrespective of that, there's data that is private in there or belongs to the person. So how do you protect it from the get-go? So first of all, start with making sure that there is as little as possible access to that information. That the information there, even if, let's say, someone was able to get access to the database, is already encrypted so that they're not able to interpret it straight off the bat. That when that data is moved between systems, that data is encrypted in motion. So those, from a technical perspective, we talk about encryption at rest when it's in the database, and encryption at motion when it's being accessed or exchanged. And then there's layers of additional security to detect if there's attempts. There's layers of security to restrict that you can only get in through specific channels. And one of the things that why interoperability is important to be in here is the fact that if you take this room and you're trying to protect it, if you put 25 doors in this room, you've got to protect 25 doors, right? If you only have one door, then you only have one door to defend. Now, obviously, the one door concept, just to make sure we keep things balanced, there still has to be system administrators and so forth to manage, and that's the case of any, we might not want to think about that, but every time you have, if it's paper-based, there's somebody that has to maintain the file room, right, and maintain the files. So there is effectively an administrator that has. If it's a digital system, there's someone that has to maintain. However, not everybody that has to maintain has access, can get to the data, because the data, again, is encrypted and so forth, right? But that's all about technology. But security can't be limited to technology. It has to be also encompassing processes. That's why it talks about having the processes and systems, and then it's also about the obligations on the people and making sure that you manage. So it has to be, and this isn't the exhaustive list, but at a bare minimum, it has to be about people, process, and technology to implement security. And something else that I'll say to you, you flagged up that the concept of national ID went back to at least 2007 in the Legislative Assembly. I know there have been other mentions of it since that in the Legislative Assembly as well. But one of the things that had to be put in place before we could progress along this journey was that we focus on security and implement tools and mechanisms and increase, because and that has to be something that we continue to do over time. And I think the good thing here is that in this law, it puts obligations and makes someone accountable for ensuring, and it gives them the power to make sure that they can live up to that, in it. And I think that's really what this is all about.
Excellent. Okay, we're going to take a commercial break. When we return, the conversation will continue. One person wanted to know, would the nationality be based on country of origin? For example, Caymanians that were born abroad mainly for medical reasons. Again, I will have my panel explain to you, because that there would not be an issue for the register. That would be an issue for work and customs and border control when it comes to nationality issues. But again, this will help you to understand the concept that is being proposed now as well. Folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
We think it's time you crossed over to a new vehicle. And with the Toyota Corolla Cross, now at Vamp Motors, you have plenty of reasons to make the switch. The crossover body and hybrid engine is a sleek design in a sturdy structure with a spacious interior that opens to extensive cargo space. Stuck in traffic? The high-performance self-charging hybrid system automatically switches between gas and electric vehicle mode, helping you lower both fuel costs and carbon emissions. The Corolla Cross has full LED lighting inside and out, an integrated display audio system with energy monitor, and a dual-zone climate control system to ensure comfort for all. Test drive the new Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid today at Vamp Motors, Walkers Road.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
The Atlantic hurricane season is now through November 30. International weather authorities predict up to 21 named storms and 6 major hurricanes. Prepare now. Select your place of safety before the storm. Get supplies now when it's easy to shop, avoiding long lines and crowds. Secure your valuables, your documents, your medicines, your first aid kit. Keep a photographic record of your valuables. Charge your phone, get more credit. Plan where to safely park your car. Preparation now makes sense. A message from Rotary Central, planning ahead for disasters since 1997. Rotary, all the good you imagine.
Your dream home starts with a vision, and often inspiration is at the heart of that vision. Brand Source Home Gallery's in-house designers are here to help bring your vision to life. Whether you're remodeling or building a new home, Brand Source Home Gallery is your one-stop solution. Explore their kitchen cabinets, sinks, faucets, bath fixtures, tubs, vanities, and more. Let Brand Source's designers help and inspire you with your next project. Call 623-5000 and schedule an appointment with a design expert at Brand Source Home Gallery, Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park, serving Cayman for 50 years.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system. For information that matter. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. In the studio, Minister Andre Ebanks, Mr. Ian Tibbetts, and Mr. Charles Brown, and we're talking about the National Identification System as well as the registrar bill. Gentlemen.
I think you found something that you
okay. Yes. I will share that with you. So, folks, on the Thursday, the 6th of September, 2007, and this is from the official Hansard report of our then Legislative Assembly, Mr. Alfonso Wright started by saying, says, Madam Speaker, National Identification System is a topic that has been discussed, and I just want to position my page so that I don't have to keep scrolling. Here we go. That has been discussed on many occasions in this honorable House. For some reason, a motion was moved here in this honorable House sometime in 1987. That motion failed. A motion was moved again in 1989, and that motion was passed, not unanimously, 13-1. That motion called for voluntary adoption of an identification system. In 1994, another motion was brought on the same topic. That motion again was passed. As best as I can see here, that seems to have been passed unanimously. That was for mandatory, or as the motion was worded, compulsory adoption. It appears to me that a national identification system for the Cayman Islands is something that legislators have talked about for some 20 years now, and on 2 occasions the motion was actually accepted In all three instances, the motion was brought by a backbencher. It was a private member's motion. At no time did it come through as a government motion. So it appears as if it was one of those motions that the government felt obliged to accept, but had no intention of doing anything about it. Otherwise, we would have a system in place now. Gentlemen, that was on the 6th of September 2007 when Mr. Wright introduced his private member's motion. And of course, there's more to that, but I don't want to occupy too much of the time because you still have some, we still have some things to discuss, and we have some of our callers chopping at the bit, but we're going to ask them to hold off a little bit longer until we just address a few more issues, and then we will open up the phone lines.
Yeah, I think we can get there to the interactive session sooner.
Sure.
I only, when you found it in the break, just gave me pause, particularly the historical precedent of 1987 where voluntary adoption was proposed. That's very insightful. And I think there's a correlation there, or at least supporting information there of what we proposed this morning. So just to recap, for those who may not have been able to listen in at the top of the show, we have considered feedback that we have received from individuals who recognize that the card is optional. And although it may have been with good intentions for us to have a register bill with downloading a minimal set of data so that that's available should the legislation be passed right away for those who wanted to opt in, there are individuals who said, well, I don't really want to be in the register in the first place. And I have some queries around some concerns about some main sections. So just to recap what we've already shared this morning, in terms of in the definition section of the register bill and the interpretation section, in terms of the related facts, which are the additional facts, some of which will be optional, at the discretion of the applicant, we're proposing to remove under the definition of related facts the subclause K, which allowed for additional categories that may be prescribed by cabinet, and delete that so that you have an exhaustive list of what is meant by related facts for the time being, and Parliament would have to, rather than the executive, would have to decide if we're going to add more fields, which gives more consultation. In clauses 3.2, and then also in clause 5, we will adopt language which would essentially, if my colleagues in caucus agree, that would revert to the 1987 proposal to make this aspect of the register voluntary. So at the choice of the applicant to provide freedom of choice. There also is a section in relation to, a clause in relation to the duties of the registrar, and which I would propose to my colleagues in caucus under clause 14, subclause 1, subclause H, the deletion of facilitate international obligations relating to the register. It's unnecessary, and the standards of the system that the registrar will employ will be up to international code, so there's no need for that to be stated in regulation or legislation, which might be misconstrued to mean something else. And then, importantly, for the feedback from individuals to say, well, even if the bill then provides for a voluntary adoption or inclusion into the register, I might still be forced or compelled into the register if public authorities decide, well, this is a really good way to transact business, and we'll only do business with members of the public that have the ID card in the code. I think it's important that we allow, again, freedom of choice, and I would suggest to my colleagues in caucus that we would then adopt language or include language in Clause 29 to confirm that the public authorities cannot discriminate against individuals and deny services to individuals who do not have the ID and the code. So that provides a recap. We went through, I think, an overview of the entire bill, but in terms of recapping some of the questions that we have received, those are the main changes that we propose.
Just before we take calls,
Sure.
I would just like to remind the public that the information we're talking about in the register is identity facts and related facts. The identity facts are just the bare minimum. Full name, date of birth, nationality, sex, immigration status, and the identification code. And related facts as just a slightly larger list, but a lot of the optional elements this is where you as the individual would populate those elements. And it's place of birth, identification code of the parents, delegated authority, height, eye color, physical signature photograph, and then contact information. And that's it.
Okay, so we're going to take our commercial break now. We do have a caller on hold, and then some emails and things. Some of them I will read them while we're on the commercial break to you, give you an opportunity to prepare your responses as well. Folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
So much happening so fast, too much. It is hard for me to follow my health care instructions. The private counseling with West Bay Pharmacy literally saved my life.
At West Bay Pharmacy, we know how complex medications can be. Our pharmacists are delighted to offer you personalized one-on-one healthcare counseling, free medication review, therapeutic callbacks, and we will liaise with your physician to ensure you receive the best in quality medical care.
Quality of life has a whole new meaning with the right pharmacy to support you. Thank you, West Bay Pharmacy.
West Bay Pharmacy in Centennial Towers. Convenient quality care is just around the corner. Now you can WhatsApp your West Bay Pharmacy prescriptions to 516-0777.
J&M Money touching down again. Now you can send your US dollars at any location on island, including the BRAC. It's easy. Just walk with your US dollars. No need to convert to CI. This is another convenient service available at J&M Money. They always find a way to make it easier and hassle-free. So remember, when you need to send your money and you only have US dollars, don't ever think of what to do. Just head straight to any J&M Money location and send your money the fast, convenient, and affordable J&M Money. J&M Money, touching down again. J&M Money, ranga to la friend.
After more than 20 years, the Cayman Islands Air Show is back. It's all eyes to the sky on Saturday, December 3rd for a thrilling air show on 7 Mile Public Beach. Witness amazing aerobatic maneuvers as world-class pilots put on a stunning show. Then see the planes and meet the aviators at the Island Air Hangar. Parking permitted at designated sites with free shuttle buses to the events. For all the details and event lineup, visit CaymanAirShow.com. The Cayman Islands Air Show returns Saturday, December 3rd, 10 a.m. at 7 Mile Public Beach and 3 p.m. at the Island Air Hangar.
Tune in every Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. for Radio Cayman's Midday Newscast. Radio Cayman, the People's Station, your trusted official source for the latest news. The 12 p.m. news is proudly brought to you by Health City Cayman Islands. World-class healthcare within your reach.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system. For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We have two callers on hold. Callers, we're going to ask you to please be as brief as possible because I'm sure that if you have a question, that you want the panelists here to respond to it as well. And we want to give as many people as possible an opportunity, as well as we do have emails and text messages. So caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As you can hear, Minister Ebanks, this forum is way too limited to have a proper discussion on this topic because this involves back and forth with intricate details about stuff that doesn't fit within a 15-minute window. Having said that, in Section 4, Section 3.4e, the term national security is used. What's the definition of national security?
Just caller, hold 1 second for me. We're having a little technical difficulty. Are you hearing now, Minister?
Yeah, I can hear now.
Yes. Okay. Go. Repeat your question, caller, please.
Okay. In section 3.4e, there's the term national security. What's the definition of national security? I mean, I have other concerns as well.
You want to raise the other ones so that we can address them all at the same time, caller?
I find that doesn't work because half of them gets ignored when you do it that way. This is the point that I was making when I said that I don't think this forum is the best place to deal with such an important piece of legislation. This is one based on the limitations that we have as far as talk radio is concerned. The whole idea behind this is to give as much information to the public as possible, but also to get some feedback, from you. Now, this isn't the final or the only solution to it, and the minister did invite persons to offer their comments, and he has met with persons who have had concerns as well. So this isn't the end all and the be all to the discussion. Well, what you could perhaps do to accommodate the discussion is to modify the layout so that you do your advertising differently, so that the conversation could be better facilitated. Is what I'm getting at.
Okay.
So national security would be, as defined by the National Security Council, would be the short answer. We're talking major events where there's a declaration of a major issue, a major event. I think that's an encompassing answer.
It doesn't. It's not including heads of departments who think that on a particular subject that it's national security, that the person can do whatever with your information under the guise of national security.
No, not at all.
Okay. There is the issue of voluntary. You discussed that in the context of interacting with an agency of government, but you didn't discuss it in the context of in the private sector. So, for example, if someone goes to the bank and the bank says, well, I want to see your national ID card, and government is saying it's voluntary, will they still be able to open a bank account without having to have the national ID card, or would they be would they either have to do without getting the account if that's the requirements of the bank?
No, the purpose would be to maintain the voluntary aspect of it, and the bank not require its own rules to say that you must have this card in order to transact business with us. It could be the other way around, that it provides an individual who doesn't have any ID a type of government issued ID that can be acceptable to the banks.
Yeah. What about, there's a definition of, sorry, I'll deal with that one at a different time, but under the identity fact, you have the person's name, right? And this is something that I sought to address before, but I think the answer that I got wasn't quite what is necessary. You being a lawyer, please listen to how I'm picking this apart. When you say that you're going to collect a person's name, it says you're going to connect the person's. This doesn't make any provisions for a suffix for a name. my name is Denny Erlin Warren Jr. I know that people like to think of me as Denny Warren, but I'm certainly not Denny Warren by any stretch of the imagination. And the question is if this bill doesn't explicitly say that you can collect a suffix, would you have the authority to collect the suffix? And if you don't, would you be correctly identifying all individuals?
And you would be willing to volunteer the suffix?
Well, if you're making a bill, the purpose of the bill is for the agency to have the authority to collect the information, right? And so what I'm saying is that if you're providing for it, let's say that you're going to push this through regardless of what other remaining objections exist. I understand that you're listening. I understand that you've made changes. That's all good, and I think we need to have far more conversation on this thing. But just on a technical matter, if you don't say that the person has to supply the suffix, if you go into another country, especially the U.S.
Caller, don't use examples for us because we really can't get into all of that. Now, your point about the suffix, please.
Well, I wasn't getting into an example.
Yeah, because you're going into the U.S. And using that as an example. We don't need examples now. We need to get to the point.
Well, that is the point.
Okay, let's chime in there.
Go ahead.
Let's chime in. I think we got the grasp of the question.
Okay, sure.
Sorry. So, and I think Mr. Warren, referred to you as from the legal perspective, and that's perfectly right because I'm definitely no lawyer. But I think one thing that's interesting. So this is, I believe, the kind of thing that the intent of the law, where Cabinet could make regulations if it found these things, but expecting to remove that kind of provision, it is the kind of thing that we need to be more. We'll need to now really consider, and it may be something that should be added in the related facts. Now, having looked at this a little bit myself for my own personal circumstances, it's a very interesting scenario because I am, for example, I'm Ian Tibbetts. Ian means senior. However, senior is not an official suffix because you'd never be born senior, for example. There's even, I've seen back in precedents where the suffix of junior, for example, it used to be that it automatically had to fall away within a certain period after death of the senior, and so there's a whole lot of scenarios. But I think the caller's point of it may be a required item to align with other identity documents and for other purposes. So it's something we should definitely consider, I think.
That's why I asked the caller the question, would he be willing to volunteer the information, because then it could be added to the related facts.
It can't be related facts because it's not related to my identity. It is a constituent of my identity.
But there can be a few complications with this. So, for instance, if he or any other individual was to have a child, so if the parent is junior and they were to have another child and name that child the same name, how does the suffix change? And I think the complexities here is... Okay, one second. The complexities here highlight the issues that can occur. And what we definitely do not want is to have a different name in the register, for instance, with suffix, and then a different name printed on the card with or without suffix. So if I'm not mistaken, the card has been designed to the standard of an international travel document. Passports do not actually include suffix. They're concatenated with the last name. So I think there's ways that we can work around this. It's just that it may not include the actual suffix as a title, but
I think
what my question is in relation to is in relation to you collecting the information. How you choose to represent that information on the document is a different question. Because what I'm saying to you is that categorically, my name is not Benny Erlin Warren. I guarantee you it's not. It is Benny Erlin Warren Jr., and Jr. is not a related fact. It is a part of my name.
Okay, caller, I'm going to suggest that you continue this conversation through correspondence with the minister before the show is over. These gentlemen here will give their contact details that you may want to provide that information. But I believe, Minister, you want to say something before?
Yeah, but just not to avoid the question.
Yeah, no, not that we're trying to avoid it. It's just time constraints.
It's just a question of whether or not, and we'll consult with legal drafting if it's something we can add to the identity facts, which would address his question for that category of persons, and on whether or not it's more so in the related facts, but he makes a strong point about whether or not it should be in identity facts.
Right.
So one, it's technologically possible, and two, it's legislatively possible. We'll just give it some thought.
Yeah. So we'll take that one back. I think also what I'd like to just pass out to the listening public is that we have a website that's available with all this information. There's the ability to leave feedback through the website as well. So it's imagine.egov.ky. But as it relates to the caller's question, we will take that back and discuss further with legal drafting that particular matter.
Okay. We want to thank that caller for that. We're going to go to a commercial break. We still have other callers on hold. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
What's that? No sugar, same amazing taste? Coca-Cola Zero Sugar is here to stay.
No one can stop me when I taste the feel.
Classic taste, pure satisfaction. Be sure to stop into any Tortuga location and get your own case of Coke Zero. Or grab an ice cold one straight from the cooler. Brought to you by Tortuga Distributors Limited. Coca-Cola, taste the feeling, K-Man.
The Board of Trustees of the Chamber Pension Plan invites our members to attend the annual general meeting on December 7th at 6:30 p.m. The meeting will be held at the Chamber of Commerce Boardroom in Governors Square. Come out to meet our trustees, receive performance updates, and take part in our question and answer segment. The National Pensions legislation strongly recommends that all pensions contributors and retirees remain involved and informed on their pension plans. Refreshments will be served. Please visit our website, chamberpension.ky, or email admin@pensions.ky for further details. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you.
It's the final sale of the year at Reflections with up to 50% savings on selected famous brands such as Nike, Reebok, Puma, US Polo, Adidas, Levi's, and Dockers pants for men and women. This holiday gift-giving season, Reflections gift certificates are the easiest way to share your love with friends and family. Levi's and Dockers holiday collection just arrived. Discover your new style and enjoy huge savings on shoes, bags, accessories, and the most fashionable clothing for all your holiday parties. Hurry in today. Purchase Reflections gift certificates for everyone on your shopping list and outfit yourself from their finest holiday collection. Don't miss up to 50% off savings at Reflections Holiday Sales Event. See yourself in Reflections. Open 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Thursday and until 9 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays. Reflections is located on Shedden Road across from Napa.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system. For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. We're on the last leg of the show this morning. We're going straight to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning to you, Mr. Ossie.
Good morning, sir.
And good morning to your panel, to Minister, and to Mr. Tibbetts, and I think Mr. Brown.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning. Morning, gentlemen. I just want to be one of those that say thank you Thank you for bringing some sort of legislation that talks about establishing a national ID card. I am very happy that you chose this forum to come on here this morning, because last week I was tuned into another forum and there was a lot of duppies that was being shared in Boogeyman, and we come to see now this morning with some clarity that it was just Sister Sue dressed up in a little dress screaming, around the corner. And I am very, very happy that you took the time, Minister, with your team to come and shed the details on what the national ID and the register entails. It makes absolute sense to me, if we're going to be thinking about a national ID system, that the government had to ensure the protection of that data, the storage of that data, the handling of that data, hence the registry, and how we go about it, who accesses it, who has access to it, and the management of it. Makes absolute sense that they go in tandem and run together. I have no concerns relevant to the handling of that data and the gathering of it, even the storage of it, because obviously as a former civil servant, I have, for the most part, good faith in our civil service. I did have some questions. Thank you very much to start with. I did have some. I think it's long overdue, I may add. I did have some questions in relation to a couple of things, and if you can answer them, that would be very helpful. I'll get off the line. I'll see if I can remember them in the midst of waiting for a little bit. One of them was to do with, it seems like the onus is on the person or individuals to share information for the purposes of the registry getting going, and in terms of building the data. Is that how it's supposed to be? My mind is thinking, certainly from a Kimanian standpoint, with all of the necessities that we require, some sort of proof of identity or otherwise, because our society seems to be, frustrating us to death with that. So again, I'm very grateful for this, if this is going to assist, and perhaps you need to sing the goodness of why that's necessary from a Kimanian perspective, Minister, because I think that would be very helpful. But why don't we use things like, could we not, perhaps the legislation speak to the registry, the general registry that is, that currently has all of our birth certificates? Could there not be an aspect of the legislation for the national ID where there is a core or base data set that is drawn from, and then the person comes and builds on top of that? Because can you speak to how that information gets going? Because if the onus is entirely on the person, it may be very difficult. And I was also thinking posthumously as well, because sometime recently we got, for example, our great-grandmother's birth certificate, and we come to find out all these years, we knew her marriage name. She was a Hyde, but I thought she was a Dilbert because that's where her family was from, and come to find out she was registered as a Bush. And so, it could be very helpful for people to have it. I also want to hear about how you're going to go about the whole entire picture thing. How, most IDs have pictures. Is this one proposed to have pictures or not have pictures? And then finally, I think my understanding of one of the reasons or the thrust from way back in the old legislation, and I heard Mr. O.C. speak about some of the history of it, there was the thrust behind identifying not just Caymanians, but also those who are among us, and particularly since we have such a huge foreign expatriate workforce. And there are now elements within our community that we certainly would be, I think law enforcement would find it much more easier to operate. We can't walk away from that, and if that's part of the situation of considerations, then we should be sharing that. But more importantly, why don't we, or why can't we not make it mandatory if you are on work permit? Can we not split it, that you are required to have it? And this is not picking on them, this is just the reality. Why can't we not make the legislation so that there's a requirement for some components? Is that discriminatory? We're allowed to discriminate. We heard that the other day, Mr. O.C., from Mr. McPhee, when he shared the Constitution in the interest of public interest. But those are some of my concerns versus the very technical details that some people worry about.
Okay, we'll ask our panel to cover those for you as well. Thank you very much for that caller. And I'm going to add this to it as well, panelists. this writer wants to thank you, the panel, for clarifying and making changes to some of the points. And they want to ask the following questions. Can one opt out of the registry after they have signed up? That was it. And number 2, the measures that will be put in place to protect one's data against data breaches, i.e. hackers as well. Okay, gentlemen.
So just to thank the last caller for supportive comments and understanding of the overall intent and purposes. Thank you for that. And very, I think, good questions in terms of implementation. Those are matters that we're discussing now, because at the top of the show, where the initial intent was to have the database stocked if it was going to be shall rather than may, then information would be downloaded from a number of different registries to have the matching exercise to prove that it's you. Mm-hmm. So he's quite right, and it's an astute observation that if it's now turned to may, then that would provide still the same matching exercise from the same databases, but there might be a bit more of an onus on the applicant to do. So maybe, Ian, you could talk it through, but it'd still be a verification and matching, and it's still possible.
Yeah, I think the key there is that you have to ensure that you're getting the data for the right person. So the way it was originally was that you would get, for the people that would have been in the register, you would have their minimal data set in the register, and when you go through the identity verification piece, you then make sure that it's the right person and that their information is all up to date. In the paradigm where it's optional, then you have to get enough information from the person to figure out who that person is and find it in their source of record for, say, their immigration status. So, and because you don't want to be, fishing it for information fairly widely there, you're going to need to get fairly specific to make sure that you're only accessing that person's information because they're the ones that have consented to get the information.
And then the picture is a common question.
Sure. So the picture would come from the card on-ramping. And when you sign up for the card, we capture your picture and your signature, and that's where that would be uploaded into that aspect of the register. The person also mentioned a general registry component, and it was always envisioned that when a child is born, from the birth of the child, general registry, upon registering the birth, would transmit that information into the register as well. So now that it's a voluntary part, the parent would be essentially acting on behalf of the child, and that would continue to exist for any family that, parent and child relationship that they would like to be in the register. That's how it would work. So work holds a piece of the information now for anybody that has come to the island via air or sea, and that's how we would get that information primarily, and then general registry would fill in on the other side.
One quick point on that is the fact, so when obviously we would look to put in place processes and so forth where when the person is registering the child with general registry, it is an option for them to indicate that they want that child's information added to the register.
Mm-hmm.
The element that comes into play there is obviously you don't want the stranded record of the child in the register without their parents.
Yes.
So you're going to need to have the parent, at least one parent's information added to the register to associate with that. So it does add some complexity, but it's a process. It can be worked out.
Correct.
And I think we had also asked, there was also a question about nationalities.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely the register will accommodate multiple nationalities. Day one, it will most likely accommodate one as a start, and then it will be able to consume them later on as we mature. Also, in terms of opting out, it is very likely that we will have the ability to make an account dormant in quite a few situations that will be necessary. So, for instance, if a work permit holder leaves the island, there has to be a duty that ceases in terms of keeping the registrar up to date. And in terms of data breaches, I just want to highlight that penetration tests have already been done on the system, the interoperability system. These types of tests will continue to be done on the actual register itself before we go live, just to ensure to the public that security is a huge element of our procedures and how things are being built.
Okay, and there was a related question there that I didn't read out as well. Someone wanted to know whether or not the data was going to be held. They said physically or in the cloud.
No, it's so the way that it's set up is that the data will be in Cayman Islands government systems, in Cayman Islands government facilities, for specifically for that purpose. Charles, there was a point I wanted to make in relation to the point.
Did it slip you now?
Dormant account.
Okay.
Yes, actually, sorry.
Okay.
Just really quickly. One of the things that is important is that while you need to be able to accommodate dormant accounts, you want to ensure that the identity information is always, there's not multiple identity information assigned to the same person. Because if you think about cases where someone is here now and has started contributing to a pension, etc., at a later point, you don't want to create a problem for them where, oh, hang on, no, you're a different person, you have a different identification code, you have different, because you may well have gotten married and come back with different names or whatever the case may be. So there needs to be, if you want to achieve the benefits and the practical purpose, there needs to be a mechanism where you can, as you said, make an account dormant, not required to continue to update it. However, if you are back, in the register and functioning, you should only get back that identification code, and then you update it accordingly.
Got you. And one person wanted to know whether or not with the proposed amendments, will this cause the bill to go back out to public consultation, or will the proposed amendments and those accepted by caucus, will they then simply be dealt with in our parliament?
It's a very good question, and when we were discussing it after we collected feedback, I think with those key changes that cause concern do lend themselves to be able to be dealt with at a committee stage should we attain support. But what I would imagine, me thinking out loud, I haven't a chance to share this with you all, but I've been thinking as I was sitting here, is that once we have legislative drafting, if caucus supports, and we have legislative drafting actually draft the text, perhaps we can have a meeting so the public can have full sight of the proposed amendments, rather than it happening solely on the floor of Parliament and people wondering and not being able to see, to build in that transparency so people can see beforehand that these are the proposed amendments to address sort of the key concern of those who wanted a freedom of choice. And then bring those, because you have to give under the standing orders, you have to give, unless you have leave of the speaker, at least 2 days notice of the committee stage amendments anyhow. So there's no reason why we couldn't be transparent. And then I'll address if you give me a few moments to wind up.
Sure.
How I think that the tool will evolve over time.
Go right ahead.
Are we wrapping up?
Yeah,
this is it? Okay.
Yeah. I'm told we got to wrap up.
Okay. So just to wrap up, I would like to convey thanks to you for accommodating us as the OC on shorter notice to come back, particularly when concerns were raised.
Sure.
And I appreciate that.
No problem.
And I appreciate also, unprompted by any of us, your historical research on off the cuff to show how far back historically this issue goes. And to say that, again, we are the innovation ministry. We are trying to provide a tool and a platform to reduce the burden and the hassle on the applicant or the client or the customer to do business with government and also potentially private sector entities at their option. And also provide one document that a Caymanian who's verified as Caymanian can hold up and say, I am Caymanian, which has not existed in our entire history.
Yep.
So this is a transformative change, but we recognize the fact that as we are moving deeper into the digital environment, there will be individuals who either are unable or uncomfortable in that environment at this stage. And it's important for us to listen, take feedback, not do it in the way that just government initially designed, even with all good intents and purposes, but to bring the country along to its advancement. And voluntary provides itself for those who are ready to go day one and say, look, I accept it may not be perfect. I accept that there may be some aspect that I'll have to do to inform, and there may be glitches, and government will have to continue to retool it. But I'm willing and ready because I see the benefit to give them the opportunity to do so, and then give those who are either uncomfortable or long lead time on a voluntary basis to see how the tool goes, see that if it works, and as they get comfortable, you may have situations where someone might look at you, OC, and boy, how'd you get through that so fast? I'm still waiting 4 days. Well, I have this ID, and I've allowed the system to have this identification, and then other people might say, okay, I will go get one, and that could be 2-3 years from now.
Okay. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for making yourselves available again to explain this, and hopefully you have allayed many of the concerns that persons have as well. Folks, I want to thank you, all of those who participated, and just to bear in mind there are limits to talk radio in terms of time as well. So join Sterling Duraney Banks at 12:15 for Talk Today, and as usual we ask the good Lord to bless these three beautiful, wonderful Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.